Welcome to the DisabiliTEA, a podcast where we have candid discussions about all things related to disability. Short-term, long-term, financial claims, impact on other areas of life, causes in the workplace, and more. With your host, attorney Anjel Burgess. You can find this show at www.disabilityhelpline.com and on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. Now here's the host of the DisabiliTEA, Anjel Burgess.
Hello and welcome to the DisabiliTEA. I am so pleased today. We've got a very special guest with us. We have Dr. Silvio Reyes from MTBM Global. Welcome, Dr. Reyes.
Thank you very much for having me, Ms. Burgess. Pleasure to be here.
So we've got a lot of really great information to talk about today with Dr. Reyes. First, I'd like to start off by just having you just tell us a little bit about you and the services that you offer.
Okay. Well, my name is Dr. Silvio Reyes. I am a vocational expert and by training a certified rehabilitation counselor, which means that I assist individuals with disabilities to help them find employment. And then as a vocational expert, I assist attorneys in documenting damages in personal injury cases, veterans disability cases, Social Security, where I testify, as well as offer life care planning in cases where people have catastrophic injuries.
Okay, well, that is fantastic. So, our audience can really use the information and services that you provide, Dr. Reyes. I want to first just kind of back up just a little bit and have you explain to our audience, what is a vocational expert?
Okay, well, a vocational expert is a professional that has a master's degree or above in vocational rehabilitation counseling. And a vocational expert is one that studies the local labor market as well as the national labor market to speak on earnings, speak on job availability, as well as jobs that are located throughout the country.
Okay. And so as a vocational expert, do you also provide any sort of job training or job placement services?
As a vocational expert, yes, I do. More so as a rehabilitation counselor. We offer job training services that span from work evaluation to job readiness training, interviewing counseling. We also assist individuals in what we call work literacy training, where we teach you soft skills in how to maintain and keep jobs when you are placed into a job.
Okay. So in the disability context, I see a couple of ways in which you could be useful to individuals and families, right? One that you mentioned is in job training and placement. So if a family or an individual comes to you and maybe they don't have the skills that they need to be able to get a job or maybe to perform at a job, is that something that you can help them with, that you can train them on and prepare them for?
Yes, absolutely. So typically the process is this. An individual will come into the office or they'll be referred to us, and we will then ask if they have a resume. If they do not have a resume, then we engage them in resume development. We'll run them through a diagnostic interview where we'll glean this information from the individual, learning mostly about what their interests are, desired vocational goals, any skills that they may possess or may not possess. And then we would begin the resume development and then also training. So job readiness training and work literacy training are the two key elements. We also look at residual capacities, what an individual can do after sustaining an injury if it's of physical nature. If it's not a physical nature and it's a cognitive disability where there's one that's, quote unquote, hidden, then we will also speak to and conduct what's called a vocational evaluation or a vocational assessment. That assessment then tells us what this person can do, what they cannot do, areas where they have strengths and weaknesses, and areas of concern. We will then locate jobs that are in the local or national economy that one could perform. Because now, in the wake of technology, people can also perform jobs right from their home. Oftentimes we look at job readiness training and we offer that. That is the ability to get the job. Okay. And then we offer work literacy training, which allows a person to keep the job. So, and after performing those or running after training an individual in this fashion, then we will conduct work evaluations, which is an evaluation where we look at an individual and test them prior to placing them into a job, and then following up 30 days later to ensure that they're performing. Where they're not performing well, we will continue with the training and also administer a job coach. The job coach will assist them in completing essential job duties to ensure that they maintain employment.
Okay. So, if an individual is looking for these services, are there any sort of financial programs, state funding, anything that can help them to be able to obtain these services? Because I would assume they're not free, right?
Well, this is very true. They're not free. But one of the major programs that's here within Georgia is the Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Program, where an individual will sign up for and attend a seminar, which will be an intake. That intake will then allow them to be placed on a person's caseload according to their disability. Then they can be referred to our office, or they can, because we're in partnership with them, or one could come directly to our office as a individual that's seeking job training.
Okay. So that's great. So you work with vocational rehabilitation, the state program, to help provide these services to individuals, which in turn helps with funding so that they're able to get what they need.
Yes. We also have a partnership with the Bobby Dodd Institute.
Wonderful.
Where an individual would be a recipient of their services, and then they would be referred to us as well.
Okay. So if anyone is looking for any sort of vocational support, is it okay for them to come directly to you and your firm, Dr. Reyes, for the assistance? Or do they have to go through the state before they can get to you?
Well, it's recommended that they go through the state because the state is going to, they will fund their services. So it's recommended that they go through the state. They can come directly to us, but then that's a private pay situation.
Okay.
We also offer resume development by phone, where an individual can contact us to say, hey, I have a resume and I would like to kind of have my resume tweaked. I'd like to have it reviewed so that we can come to a point where I can be employable on paper.
Okay. All right. So for anyone out there that is looking for any sort of vocational or job training or job placement, sounds like the best avenue for you to get these services in a way that they are funded is to go to your state vocational rehabilitation department and say to them, I need these services, but I would like to have Dr. Reyes or MTBM Global work with me to provide these services. Does that sound correct, Dr. Reyes?
Yes, they can.
Okay.
That sounds correct. Yes. We receive referrals a lot from the Bobby Dodd Institute, where people not only come in to get vocational services, but they also come to get family support services as well. On staff, we have peer support. We also have parental support aides that will assist individuals that have alcohol and substance abuse histories, as well as people who would like to have family support throughout the process. Oftentimes, the process starts and stops with the support of the family.
Yes.
So we encourage this often.
Wonderful. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about job placement for just a moment. With
Yeah.
the job placement, I know that you talked about quite a detailed process that you all go through to, see what the individual's interests are and assess their skills. Are there ever times when you find that an individual is not ready to be placed in competitive employment and may need a much more supportive type of work environment?
Yes. When we have situations that develop like that, we will do what's called situational assessments, where we will conduct testing where one would be in-house with us, and we'd run them through a series of testing events that are work simulated. So we would have a person that's interested in being a warehouse worker, for example, or a person that wants to do stocking. We would run them through a series of uh, stocking activities to conduct inventory, to show them how to place things on a shelf, to see how much they can lift and how many times they could place an item on the shelf in the proper fashion, to make sure that it is in the correct places. We also have other tests where we test a person's interests and we test a person's abilities. So we want to see the hand-eye coordination. We want to see the hand strength. We want to see arm strength. We want to see how well they can crouch, how well they can stoop, kneel. So we make sure that we have a viable individual. If they are not ready, we get them work ready, and that's called work hardening.
Okay. All right, wonderful. Now, these services that you provide not only to individuals, but also to families, as you mentioned, are these services only available for people that live in Georgia, or do you service families and individuals across the country?
We service individuals across the country. We have another office that's located in New York, and we have another branch that's located in Virginia. So, and we've recently expanded to Virginia. So now we are looking to expand to Tennessee, and we would like to expand to Florida as well. So we do offer nationwide services, especially for vocational expert work and life care planning work, and as well as medical cost projections and employability evaluations. We can do those remotely as well as in person.
Okay, wonderful. Well, let's talk about some of the other services that you mentioned, Dr. Reyes. You mentioned life care planning. Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, typically life care planning is a service that we offer where we will look at one's disability and we will take into account all treatments, all supplies, all so I'm trying to make sure that I explain this, and I don't want to talk over anyone's head. I don't want to start using our terms, but we take into account all medical aspects of a case and all treatment aspects of a case, and we put it into a document where we will we will come up with a sum and a cost of all aspects of a case, and that would be a tool that's used to outline and lay out a roadmap of sorts of all of the treatment modalities that one would need going forward. And it's put into a concise document that is used, and more often than not, is used in a trial to kind of speak to the costs that are associated with the treatments and supplies and needs of an individual with a catastrophic injury.
Okay, so it sounds like a life care plan could be useful for, an individual to pursue, but also for other professionals to use to assist them as they are developing their cases.
Yes, it is. And more often than not, I just recently received a case from Kentucky regarding a life care plan. People typically have spinal cord injuries, brain injuries. We also have some that are, it doesn't necessarily have to be a catastrophic injury. It can also be just a permanent injury where we receive cases where an individual would have they're an incomplete quadriplegic. or they have a back injury that is permanent, and they will have to return. They may have had a surgery, or they have to return back for a surgery, but they walk. You can see that they ambulate effectively, but they have permanent injuries. So we also receive life care plans for people with hand injuries that are permanent. So the injury just has to be permanent in order for an individual to have a life care plan or be a good candidate for a life care plan.
Okay. So some attorneys or some areas of practice where attorneys may want to contact you for a life care plan sounds like definitely personal injury, right? In a personal injury case.
Yes, personal injury, workers' compensation.
Okay, workers' compensation.
Yeah.
Any other areas of law where you see that life care plans are beneficial?
Yeah, in some cases, where in family law cases, we are useful in life care planning as well as employability evaluations. In family law cases, a life care plan would be warranted if there is, for example, someone going through a divorce, and as they're going through a divorce, they have a special needs child.
Okay.
And the special needs of that child would need to be taken into account. And in some instances, they may have never had a life care plan. Although they may have had their needs addressed, it may not have been addressed in a life care plan, which then speaks to and is calculated into the alimony, as well as, in some instances, even child support.
Okay. All right. That sounds like a really useful tool to have when planning for the financial future of an individual that has disabilities or has sustained some sort of injury. So that is wonderful. So those services you also offer to individuals and professionals across the country as well?
Yes. Yes. So like I mentioned, we just recently received a case from Kentucky. This is a life care planning case on an individual that has a spinal cord injury. And she also has a degree of brain injury as well. And just recently completed another life care plan on an individual with spinal cord injury. This one was out of Florida. So we received these cases from a number of locations, a number of states. We're not just limited to Georgia.
Okay, wonderful. And so now I want to talk a little bit about kind of going back to the vocational expert and some of the services that you provide as a vocational expert. So we've talked about the rehabilitation counselor, with job placement, with helping families. But now I want to talk about as a vocational expert, because as you know, I am heavily involved with Social Security disability cases. I also do some veterans disability cases, but primarily Social Security disability. And vocational experts are critical in Social Security disability cases. Tell us a little bit about how an attorney such as myself can benefit from your services as a vocational expert.
Okay. As a vocational expert, I can conduct what's called employability evaluations and this is utilized in personal injury cases, Social Security cases, family law cases, workers' compensation, veterans disability, even cases such as employment law, medical malpractice. What we look at is what the loss of an individual, and then we also look at the loss of earning capacity. We look at the loss of wages. Everyone across America has a job, or at least that's what is a big part of our identity. So when we undergo some level of injury, when it's litigated, then we're looking at the losses that a person would sustain. So a vocational expert can speak to the labor market. We study the labor market to find out what jobs are available, but not only the jobs that are available, we also look at the wages. We also look at what a person earns. And then we also look at where jobs are located. So for a vocational expert, we can assist in documenting the damages that are within a case, as well as the losses of earning capacity. that one would sustain in an injury. We look at the pre-salary or pre-earnings, and then we look at the post-earnings after they've sustained their injury once they've achieved the residual capacity. We also conduct medical cost projections as vocational experts as well. And I've been involved in that now since 2006, where I became a Social Security vocational expert. And that was done so that I could testify in cases, but also meet attorneys such as yourself that practice in other areas. And it serves as a formal introduction, and then attorneys would see how we testify or see how I testify, and they would then, speak to a case that they may have which may require my services.
Okay. So you can also offer another opinion in, for example, Social Security disability cases about, whether an individual could perform, their past work or any other jobs given their what Social Security calls their residual functional capacity, right? So given
Yes.
the things that Social Security says is wrong with an individual or prevents an individual from working, you can provide some expert testimony or an expert opinion about whether that individual could work within the national economy given those limitations.
Yes. And yes, that's exactly what I do. Yes.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dr. Reyes, you have provided us with so much information. And I just want to reiterate to everyone that you are really available to help individuals and families from a, job coaching, training, counseling perspective for an individual with disabilities or for the families of an individual with disabilities. And then on the other side, you can also provide expertise to other professionals, to attorneys, and you can provide assessments, the life care plans. You can provide, an expert opinion about someone's employability. So there are so many services that you are able to provide, Dr. Reyes, and I thank you so much for coming and explaining to us what you do and just kind of highlighting to individuals that there are a lot of options out there in terms of helping you to just maximize and just kind of be your best self. So I thank you very much for coming, Dr. Reyes, and for all the information that you have provided. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave with the audience before we finish today?
Yes, I feel like I have to leave contact information as well as how to reach us, where we're located. We are conveniently located in Decatur, Georgia, at 4153 Flat Shoals Parkway within the Trinity Office Park. Our telephone number is 770-987-7414. We also have an 800 number, which is 1-800-482-1846. We can also be found on the World Wide Web at www.mtbmglobal.com. And we are on all social media sites where you can find us Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and I believe a TikTok is being developed.
Okay.
So you'd be able to find us. Where the only thing we don't have now is an app, and we're working on that as well.
All right, sounds fantastic. Thank you again, Dr. Reyes. This has been another episode of the DisabiliTEA, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the DisabiliTEA with Anjel Burgess. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and sharing the show with others. You can catch prior episodes at www.disabilityhelpline.com and on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more.